Hey everyone, welcome to the third episode of Off the Track podcast. In the first two episodes, we talked about Juneteenth and the difference between systemic and systematic racism. On this episode, we're going to be highlighting Black excellence within our community. And today we have former NFL player and one of the current producers of the CW show All American with us, Spencer Paysinger. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
No, definitely. Before we dive into the episode, I know there are a lot of new faces for those of you who watched previous episodes, so I just wanted to start it off with introducing ourselves. My name is Sydney. I just finished up my junior year. I'm a psych major and a sports business minor in management, and I run distance on the track team. Bree?
Hi, my name is Bree. I am a sophomore. I'm currently a junior now at USC. I am a communications major. I am also a hurdler on the track team. And yeah, Bailey?
Hi, I'm Bailey. I'm also a junior. I major in communications and minor in entrepreneurship, and I run the 400 and the 4x4. Cam?
Hi, I'm Cameron Samuel, going into my senior year now at SC. I'm a 400 hurdler, and I am a psychology major.
Awesome. So yeah, that's all of us. So now you kind of know our names. With you being, a big part in the entertainment industry now with All American, we have some different sort of TV shows, movies, type of stuff that we're recommending on our Instagram. I know that when we first had a conversation and you scrolled through, there probably wasn't a lot on our page and we were just getting started. But Cam and Bailey have some awesome recommendations for different types of movies that really highlight what's going on in the current climate right now. And we just, after they're done kind of giving their recommendations, we were wondering if you had a few of your own. So.
Oh, absolutely. And before we get started, I will say I was a hurdler in high school. That's something that wasn't portrayed in All American. And much respect to you guys doing that, because that is a beast of a race. And I only did 110 highs and 300 lows. I didn't touch the 400s, but you guys have my respect.
Oh man, appreciate it.
Thank you.
You should try the mile and up sometime. Some cross country, 5Ks.
I'm a football player, short distances. Thank you very much.
Nice.
So,
but yeah, Cam, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. Okay. So, my movie I recommended was Rosewood. I actually just watched it for the first time in May. My mom sat me down and we watched it together. And I mean, the overall gist of it was about the early 1900s. It took place in 1912 in Florida, in a small town in Florida, and their neighboring city was it was an all-white populated city. And after a woman accused a black man of raping her, all the men of the town went and started burning and lynching all the black men in that town. And it was based on a true story, so I recommended it just because it showed what took place back in the early 1900s. And I mean, and with recent cases of lynching, it's still going on today. So yeah. Bailey?
So for my movie recommendation, I chose The Color of Friendship, which came out in the 2000s. It's actually a Disney movie, so you could probably find it on Disney Plus or one of those apps or something like that. But it's really about it was about a girl, and it was about two girls, and just learning how in one country racism was a really big thing, and that they were under this apartheid system and they didn't it was just segregation, which was it was South Africa. And then in another country in America, racism kind of died down. There wasn't segregation, but there was still racism, and they kind of did a pen pal thing. But the girl from South Africa came to the girl in America's home, and she was just kind of starstruck and just wasn't expecting her to be black, because she thought that coming to America that the same system in South Africa was happening in America. And they kind of just learn about the different upbringings and how really just educating yourself, and just you can really see in that movie the hard conversations that people don't want to have, but you find it necessary to have. So I think it's really something important to watch, especially with the things that are going on now. and how important we have to educate ourselves on the on topics. So maybe if you have any movie recommendations or book or music albums.
Those are great. I actually wrote those down, so I'll be sure to check those out. So thank you guys for that. I would say one movie that I watched recently that I remember watching when I was a kid and not necessarily understanding the full weight of it. This was probably, I started at like 11:30 at night when my family was already sleeping, and it just sort of gripped me to the point where like I couldn't sleep afterwards. But it was Spike Lee's film Get on the Bus. And it's sort of a forgotten Spike Lee film, but to me it shows somewhat of a full spectrum of being a black man in this country. And literally on the premise is, on the anniversary of the Million Man March, they're attempting to recreate that idea or recreate that journey to Washington, DC. And it's a bus full of black men that are trekking across the country from Los Angeles to Washington, DC. But it's Hill Harper, it's Wendell Pierce, it's Isaiah Washington, Roger Smith. There's just Ozzie Davis. There's so many prominent black men in this film, but they're showcasing, a father-son relationship. They're showcasing, masculine gay black men, their relationship. They're showcasing sort of an Uncle Tom. There's just so many different portrayals of what it looks like to be a black man in this country that I just thought we'll probably never see something like that again unless somebody like us creates it. So if that would be my recommendation, is definitely Get on the Bus by Spike Lee, which is available on Netflix.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep that one added to the list on Netflix.
That's fair.
So, thank you so much for your recommendation. Leading into just a little bit about yourself, I know for people who watch the show, they know you grew up in South Central, went to high school at Beverly. Can you kind of lead us into the next steps within your journey? I know college at Oregon, we won't hold that against you being all USC athletes over here, but yeah, can you tell us about kind of the next step you've taken to get to where you are?
Yeah. And I will say I was a big fan of USC growing up. I was probably a year or two underneath like the Reggie Bush era. So USC football games were the hot ticket in Los Angeles during that like 04 to 06 period. I was at every home game. I wanted to be a Trojan. I did not want to be a Bruin at all. And that's something they messed up in All-Americans. I fought hard not to show UCLA. I much rather would have been portrayed at USC. But where we see Spencer right now, Spencer James, is he's sort of understanding like where he wants to be. And that's how I was growing up, and especially in high school. It's like my mom always told me, you either need to take a 2-hour flight or a 4-hour drive outside of LA. Like she did not want me to go to school in Los Angeles. So it was just under the idea that the world is bigger than just Los Angeles and or just playing sports. She wanted me to experience other things. So playing at University of Oregon and then signing a draft to the New York Giants, that was essentially like the first time I felt like I had to not necessarily grow as a person, but like get really uncomfortable. Because for me, going to Oregon was just like going to Beverly on steroids. It was, I'm a black man in this country. I'm going to a predominantly white school, but now I'm going to a predominantly white school in a predominantly white state that has like rich KKK ties. Like the oldest building at University of Oregon called D.D. Hall, they used to hold KKK rallies there. It's crazy. But moving to New York in 2011 was the first time I said, okay, I'm going to attempt to do something I've never done before, which is see if I can succeed in an environment that I knew nothing of, which is New York, the Big Apple, whatnot. But I always knew outside of sport, I always had something to fall back on, which was just understanding that playing football, playing sports, or whatever was just a job. Like I never saw it as a career because I can't tackle people for 40 years and they retire and live off of my pension. Like you just can't do that. So I always knew that there was sort of this like finite window that I had that, being an undrafted 21, 22-year-old kid, it was kind of crazy looking back on it now thinking like, man, you really told yourself like you're going to play until you're 30 and then you're going to retire to get into business. And I made that decision for myself, no matter if I was like the Odell Beckham of the league or just like a guy just trying to get on the team every single year. Once I turned 30, I was going to be done with playing the sport. And I was able to essentially achieve that. But in those last 2 years of playing, that's when I started kind of writing my own stuff. Or I would say I was starting to write my own stuff in my 4th year, but it wasn't until my last 2 years playing that the idea of All-American started to take form.
Really awesome. Bailey, actually, we were talking about it beforehand before you joined, and she was talking about All-American, and she had an awesome question relating to like that and your actual experiences.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about the kind of like the basis. I think pretty much all of us are All-American fans, and like we follow it, and we're actually waiting for the next season to come out. We're very excited, but I guess like some of the clips in the show, like regarding like social justice, and like maybe you can like talk a little bit about that, like how going on, like that stuff going on during that time was, and how you kind of like got through it.
Yeah, and that's something that just the identity of the show is a pretty much a Black kid going into a very white space, and even the idea of this sort of outsider world. Whenever you depict this type of story, it's always shown as Black is bad, white is good. It's this kid got saved from the Black community and is now sort of being shepherded through this white community, and it's just better over there. So from the start, we didn't want to do that, trope. We didn't want to say Black bad, white good. We wanted to show that both of them are the same place, no matter like social economic stance or whatever. Like, these people, strip away the cars, the money, everything, everybody goes through these same emotions. Like, it's just, that's what makes us all human. So when it comes to telling those stories, there were times growing up, especially in high school, when, getting pulled over by police, like the episode 3, season 1, getting pulled over by the police was an actual thing that happened to me. How it happened was a little bit different, but one of my closest friends from high school that lives down the street from me, we were still, really tight today. Like, we were the ones that got pulled over. So we definitely wanted to bring that idea of being a young Black kid in Los Angeles in an area that you're not familiar with the show, and understanding where we can go with that. So I think the fact that it is somewhat of a homely sort of neighborhood show, we wanted to keep the community aspect of it alive in season 2 and beyond. We felt like in season 1, we really struck a chord with some of the issues that we were talking about. And although some of the issues that we're presenting didn't directly happen to me, but they happened to some Black kids, some Black or brown athlete or whatever in this country. So the growth from season 1 to season 2 was realizing that Spencer, Jordan, these characters, even Crenshaw High School at that, South Crenshaw, I should say, can sort of be a conduit for all the stories across the country that are happening. Our writers are in the writers' room right now, writing out season 3, and we're talking about how can we organically talk about some of these issues that we currently find ourselves in, and bring it in an authentic community way. So we definitely try to. We don't try to sort of outkick our coverage in terms of telling this story or making this story seems like Spencer James is changing the entire world. We want to show Spencer James can just be a person in his community exacting change.
Right.
I have a question. Oh, sorry. I have a question. But when I had seen season 1, maybe I think a year or 2 ago, so I watched season 2 like later. But I remember watching season 1 that he seemed, the character Spencer, obviously you, had seemed to get along with the football team pretty well, but dealt with a little bit of backlash by being Black, because of being Black and just being different at first. So I wanted to know if it was the transition between going to an all Black school or all colored school to a predominantly white school. Was it as easy as it perceived on the show, or did you feel more backlash and they just didn't show it all?
There's definitely things like we kept out. For one reason or another, at the end of the day, we have to tell a compelling series to get, you guys interested in it, but also the 60-year-old white man that just hit me up yesterday saying how much he loves the show. So we definitely have to play with that. But, being 13, 14 years old, going to Beverly, especially in that summertime before school actually started, and coming around my new teammates for the next 4 years, realizing that I remember walking through the door and only seeing like 2 other Black kids, but naturally feeling safer with them than the other 50 kids in there, because those other kids have grown up together. Like Beverly Hills has a 4 elementary / middle school system, and all those kids, unless they go private or whatnot, they get piped into Beverly Hills. So as soon as I'm walking in, I'm seeing relationships that have already been forged for 10, 12 years before I get to meet them. So outside of the racial aspect of it, these kids have just known each other for 10, 12, 13 years. So me coming in as sort of an unknown, there was definitely like, I was absolutely asked that question, do I know how to crip walk? Or like, what gang do I belong to? But it wasn't a sense of, and this is why I'm not quick having that experience, being so young, having that experience, I'm not so quick to paint somebody a racist, as opposed to understanding like, well, are you just ignorant right now? And even ignorance gets a bad rap. Calling somebody ignorant right now, they would take that as an insult. But like, people can literally be ignorant to information. And if you're a predominantly white, or Asian or Jewish kid growing up in Beverly Hills High School, you haven't really been around a lot of Black people, the only thing you've been exposed to has been on TV. So when a Black kid walks up, like maybe those preconceived notions are what driving your question. So I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, you're racist because you asked me that question in my gangbanger or whatnot, because that's all you've been exposed to. So I found out like early on was to just start having those conversations with them and get them to see me in a different light than what they saw on TV. And some were good, some were bad. Some just didn't want to see me beyond, just a Black kid. But I have lifelong friends now because both sides took it upon ourselves to have those conversations and become friends.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I wanted to touch base on, you mentioned earlier on in the show about the scene where they got pulled over. You're a father, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
You have younger kids. So I was wondering, I think it's unfortunate that nowadays that there has to be, like that talk, that conversation about when interactions like that occur. And I was wondering for you, is this like even this like certain talk or this time, are you sharing that with your children? Are you kind of explaining in a way that they understand, or are they too young to understand it? How are you going about it, or how will you go about it in the future?
Yeah, I think it sounds weird to say, but I'm sort of happy that I don't need to have that conversation with them yet. They're 3 years old. My daughter just turned 3. My son turns 1 in 2 weeks. So luckily with the pandemic and obviously everything happening with George Floyd and just everything that's going on, I'm happy that they don't have to experience this right now, and can sort of live in their sheltered life until they're old enough to want to have that conversation. But it's definitely been weighing on my mind of how I would present this to them. So I actually write in a journal to them. I can actually print them out. I have 2 journals. One is dedicated to my daughter and the other to my son. And it's something that me and my wife decided to do to where when they're 18 or when they're 21 or whatever, we would hope to gift them sort of 3 or 4 different volumes of this to show them who we were as people, 15, 20 years ago, but also show them who they were during these like crazy times. So I have like stories in here of like my daughter literally like shitting her pants everywhere, but then also but then like also her like playing with her little brother and just being like a great big sister and reminding her to always like lean into family. But I'm also talking about like I've written about George Floyd, I've written about Breonna Taylor in it. And it's me gearing up to have that conversation with them because I know it's going to come. I know I can't avoid it. And even in All American, we talked about that during the scene after when Spencer and Jordan get pulled over, and Spencer asks Billy, how come you never taught your son how to talk to the police? And essentially Billy says, I thought I bought us more time. With him succeeding, I thought I bought us more time. And we wanted to have that conversation in the writer's room because, as a Black man or a woman in this world, you can achieve, you can succeed, you can be the billionaire, you can be the LeBron James of the world, but there's something systematically wrong when the poorest white person in the world would still think they're better than the richest, most accomplished black man in the world. There's something just like wrong systematically with that I think we need to address. But I'm gearing up to have that conversation with my kids. I don't know exactly how I'm going to have it, but I'm just happy I have hopefully a few years before I need to have that conversation with them.
Yeah, wow, 1 and 3, they're so young. I was looking, I don't know if it was, I don't know how long ago, but I definitely in this quarantine time, I think you made like a little movie or like a show with your daughter or something like that. It was so cute. And I'm like, she's probably going to take after you being in the entertainment world someday.
Yeah, that was
comfortable
something
behind a camera.
That was something that I was working out one morning, and in my head, I was just like, let's just shoot a movie. This was honestly like the second week of quarantine, and I thought in 2 weeks we're going to be out of this. So like, let's just do something fun to like showcase what we can do in the house, not realizing like 4 months later we're still here. But yeah, it was just something that just a household activity that took us like 2 or 3 days to film. I had to bribe my daughter with like fruit snacks to say her lines. Like it taught me how to somewhat edit and just to get creative in my own home with just 2 iPhones. But yeah, it was just a fun experience, and hopefully like she's absorbed that and said like, hey, she can be creative and can just create things in her home without needing a big production behind it.
Exactly.
Definitely. One thing that I wanted to touch on is, I mean, with you having a big following on social media and being who you are, producer, I wanted to know if you thought that when people reach a certain level of success, if it's part of their duty to like use their platform as a way to fight against different causes, reach out to the community, fundraise, whatever, just kind of spread awareness to different issues. Because I think one of the big things we're seeing on social media is like cancel culture, with people like not speaking out, or like now it's like the whole thing, if you're silent, you're part of the problem, because you can't just be passive, you need to be active in this.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering if you thought that, yeah, I'm not saying that once you've reached like 50,000 followers on Instagram, you're at that level where you need to speak out, you need to post something on your story. But like, do you think it's kind of people's job to use their platform to have a voice?
I would say it's just because they have a bigger platform than some people, it would benefit the cause in general if these people were able to talk up and be genuine about it. But I don't hold that against anybody. I myself, I go back and forth with, wanting to post 50 things a day about certain issues or causes. And then the next minute I'm like, nobody wants to hear from me on this. It's sort of like that delicate balance, because at the end of the day, I still see myself as just like a normal guy, and, me championing a cause or whatnot, it can somewhat seem like, oh, does he have a dog in this race when it comes to whatever change, or has he invested in this company if he's talking about something? So I think sometimes there could be a slight veil of illegitimacy when you have these celebrities or influencers or whatever you want to call them speaking about the cause, because a lot of it is very timely. Like, I would like to see some of these people that are talking about these causes when it's not in our face, like make this part of your mission beyond sort of, where we're in right now, especially you see with these companies that are sort of trying to backtrack and say, hey, we're allies right now. It's like, well, it's easy to be an ally right now. Like it actually helps you and your bottom line to be an ally right now. I want to see what happens 6 months from now or 2 years from now or whatnot. But when it comes to just individual platforms, I don't do that when it comes to like, hey, you suck because you haven't posted anything today. I do call out people or have those conversations with people when I see them championing, for lack of a better word, a bullshit cause. But then when some shit is really pertinent and they're silent, I've had friends in college that were mad about wearing masks and mad about the quarantine a month ago and, in the streets chanting and whatnot. But then when all this stuff happens, especially with Black Lives Matter, there's nothing to be said. I haven't seen anything. So I do take offense to that, because I'm like, you're mad because you want to wear a face mask, but we are dying in the streets. Like, which one is more important to you at the end of the day? But in general, I tend not to judge anybody on how they use their platform, because I wouldn't want them to judge me how I use mine.
Definitely.
So I had a question, like going based off of that. Like I know, like a lot of people are mad at celebrities for like not speaking up, and like they're really like what I've been seeing on my timeline is like a lot of like rappers and artists being bashed for not like donating money or like signing like doing what they can do. Like, how do you? My question really is like how like what do you think that it's gonna do for like a big artist or celebrity, like if they donate money, like how much change do you really think that's gonna bring in like a short matter of time?
Well, it's funny because we've been sort of duped in this country to believe that if you have X amount of followers or some type of entertainment stature, then you can just change laws. Like it's that simple that if you just talk about it, laws are going to change. Like that's unfortunately all you can do is just help spotlight some of the issues that are happening. But I'd be hard pressed to understand if like Kim Kardashian can actually go into the Senate and get a law changed. Like,
I mean, she's a lawyer now, so who knows her power, right? Or she's in law school.
she low key can do anything, which is hilarious, but like also dope because that's one positive about America is that you can have her passed and then have the president's ear and get people out of jail. So that is a positive of America, but again, it's this whole love of entertainment that has us in this position to where a president is essentially an entertainer, and we put him in office. I'm not going to say we put him in office, but people put him in office because he was just the most vocal and the most out there and the most visual person. So when it comes to the entertainment side of America, like we have to let politicians do the job, but hold them to the fire if they don't. And when it comes to investing in these initiatives and doing that, like it's great to do that. But for myself, like I like to invest locally. I like to, dine out at Black restaurants and give resources to schools and have that impact locally, and would hope that other people do it, because at the end of the day, if we're all yelling at a politician to do his job and it takes him 5 or 6 weeks to do his job, that's great. But we can do things in our community right now, especially with local elections, to get the people in that we want. So we don't have to do it's been 100 days since, Breonna Taylor's murder and there still hasn't been any convictions. Well, maybe it's because the people that we've elected aren't the right people to be in those positions, and now it's time to get them out the box. Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry if that was a roundabout way of answering your question. But I just think we put too much emphasis on like celebridom instead of putting that same emphasis on understanding politicians. Like is there a TMZ for politics? Like somebody needs to create that. Like we need to put these politicians in the spotlight so they can't hide from us. Like we know everything Kim Kardashian is doing. We know everything that her whole family is doing. Like, let's put that same energy in understanding every single aspect of these politicians' life and see how that exact change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that something like that would be so important with our generation, because like you said, yeah, we're on social media constantly. We see what these different celebrities are doing 24/7, following that all the time. But then when it comes to politics, I think there's so many of us who maybe just aren't as informed as we should be. Like we don't have the resources, we don't know where to go, different news outlets, whatever. But something like that would be really cool to just kind of have us be more informed on the different issues. Mm-hmm. On the same lines though, with this podcast and different other initiatives, like Bailey is head of creating face masks, and with a bunch of other people on our team for this upcoming semester, drawing awareness to different social issues. We also have one group who's helping people register to vote, which I think is such a positive step, because it's like we're trying to do all these things to have other people feel comfortable, like going to the polls, knowing the issues, voting, having their voice be heard through politicians. So yeah, there's only so much that we can all do as like a track team with our little initiatives, but I think, hey, if we can spread the word, talking to you is really awesome to do that. But yeah, I think that's a really important step.
Yeah, a friend of mine, a good friend of mine actually, is building out a platform to sort of like social mediaize like the voting aspect of our country, to where, you know, you can be up to date on all the issues affecting your city, your neighborhood, your government, your state, whatever. And then afterwards, like, you literally get sort of a sheet that you can actually post and say, hey, these are my views, these are how I voted, these are why I voted. Because the age-old tale of like, we should not talk about politics is dead. Because, you know, the guy in the office right now has sort of rewrote the book on what is legitimized in this country. And we actually need to talk about politics more than anything. Like, I don't understand, even growing up, I never understood why people didn't want to talk about politics. Because we know so much of, like, say, the Kim Kardashians of the world. Politicians, part of the reason why politicians do the politics is because they know they can change laws, they can cut corners, they can do these things and be completely anonymous in doing it. And I think that's what this app can potentially do. And I can't really talk too much about it because we're still in development with it, or he's still in development with it. But it's sort of shedding light on, like, we need to talk about politics. We need to have those conversations at dinner and at lunch and with friends and out. Like, we need to understand these people's views.
I know that you are currently the owner of Hilltop Coffee, right?
Yes, Coffee and Kitchen.
Yeah, Coffee and Kitchen. I wanted to know what other projects you have done for your community and what you plan on doing maybe in the future, and what that also is and what it does for the community as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll start off with Hilltop. That's something that, again, the same guy that's building out the app is co-founder of Hilltop. But I think it had to have been about 3 years ago now that once I moved back to Los Angeles for good, and we were sort of understanding like what we want to put in our neighborhood. And for anybody that's watching, or if you guys are familiar with the area, Windsor Hills, View Park, Ladera Heights, and Baldwin Hills are essentially like deemed the Black Beverly Hills. And that's because every year, you know, per capita, those are the four of the 10 richest Black neighborhoods in the country. You know, this is where, you know, the Jacksons lived for a short period of time. This is where Ray Charles lived. This is where prominent doctors live. Like, this is where a lot of Black Hollywood is essentially moving back to. And, you know, before I even really knew the history of the neighborhood, I grew up just right down the street from here. But I always thought, like, why doesn't this area have, you know, comparable resources as like a Brentwood or a Culver City, where you don't have to leave your neighborhood to get anything you want. Grocery stores, gas stations, just post office, like all their own things. So we started asking the community and said, hey, like, what would you guys like to, you know, hear? What would you guys like? And a lot of people talked about a coffee shop, a Black-owned coffee shop that sort of represented us. So that's where the idea of Hilltop Coffee and Kitchen came from. And it's been great for the neighborhood. You know, this is a sort of an older Black neighborhood, but it is changing. But they're very protective of new ideas that come in, because they know what they have here, and they're trying to protect as much as they can, because they know, like, it's literally hidden in plain sight. Growing up with people 10, 15 minutes from here, I'm like, hey, have you guys ever been to Windsor Hills? They're like, where the hell is that? I'm like, good. Don't come here. Like, don't know where it is. But yeah, we've opened up 2 locations so far. We have another location opening up in Eagle Rock, hopefully, I think within the next month. We're doing something with Randy's Donuts soon. And then obviously having Issa Rae as a partner has, you know, exponentially grown it. So if you guys have watched Insecure this past season, there's a few episodes of her featuring Hilltop, whether she's drinking it or walking or yeah. So that's actually a lot of the shots on that are our second location, which is in Inglewood. But it's been great for the community. Some other stuff that I do is I work closely with KIPP Public Schools, which is sort of a charter school located in South Central that has, I don't know how many locations, but essentially, like, when you get accepted to the school, they're with you all the way throughout college. So you have mentors, you have programs, like their days are from like 8 to 5 p.m. in terms of curriculum, because like they're literally trying to change the minds of South Central, of the youth of South Central. Mm-hmm. So I'm part of the Black and Brown initiative there, or board members there, in terms of just building out programs for Black and Brown kids. I do career days there, just trying to just pour any resources that I have. If I can pour it into that school or any organization in South Central, I'm all for it. And I'm trying to do more things. So I welcome any ideas, but I've likened myself to just being a connector of resources. A lot of people come to me because of All Americans say, hey, we want to help out in the neighborhood. How can we do it? And even if I don't have the direct contact to it, I'll hit my contacts in South Central up and say, hey, I have somebody that wants to do. Recently, I got connected with a company that wants to provide coding classes and mentorship programs. So I hit up my people in education, like, hey, is this something of interest to you guys? And connected them together. So, yeah, just trying to play connector to South Central and bring resources from, the Hollywoods and the Burbanks and whatnot into South Central.
I think that is really cool. And I have seen Hilltop on Insecure. I just did not know that was connected to you. I think it's really cool how on her show she likes to promote Black businesses. I see her very much so show a full shot of the whole like business, the street, everything. So I think that's really cool that she was able to feature yours. So
yeah, Issa's great. She paints South Central and Inglewood specifically in such a unique light that it's comparable. Those images are comparable to any other place in Los Angeles, and I think that's the beauty of the show. It's just shot beautifully. And I'm just happy she was able to include Hilltop in that.
Yeah. Question about your opinion on the show. Are you Team Lawrence or Team Nathan?
Y'all got a second? Because listen, Nathan is a non-factor to me. I don't understand.
Thank you.
I don't understand the allure. I think it's because he's light-skinned and he talks slow. I think that's his appeal. But my dog provides nothing. Lawrence has done everything right, especially this season. He has done everything right. You can't, maybe I do have like Lawrence in me, but I'm definitely a card-carrying member of the Lawrence Hive. But he did everything right this season. I don't understand why people are giving him slack or you would want to choose Nathan over Lawrence.
Exactly. To the very end, even with the baby scandal. We're still Team Lawrence.
Hey,
okay.
He didn't try to hide it. He didn't try to hide it. He came to her as a man and said, listen, this is what happened. What are we going to do? I'm Team Lawrence. I'm Team Lawrence all the way.
It's funny. After that episode, I saw so many memes of like Lawrence on the Usher album of Confessions. It was so funny. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't see how anyone would be Team Nathan. I've been Lawrence all the way.
What was messed up too is the woman that plays Condola, I think her name is Christine or Kristen. Like she recently had a baby, I think like 1 or 2 years ago. So they were using her actual pregnancy photos as like memes and gifs about her being pregnant and Insecure. I'm like, y'all can't do this. That's just fucked up.
That is such a mess.
Calling her like Condola virus and everything. I was like, y'all, you guys are messed up for this.
Wow.
Social media is ruthless.
Man.
They've definitely been getting everybody.
I want to ask you guys, what are you guys doing outside of the podcast? Obviously with your season somewhat, being postponed or canceled, I should say. Like, what have you guys been doing to sort of keep your sanity in this quarantine?
I can talk on that a little bit. So with a couple people on the track team and also with some other student athletes, we created this organization called United Black Student Athletes Association. And it's kind of just like a space to like talk about what's going on, because especially like with the coronavirus and COVID going on, a lot of people don't know that it's affecting Black people more. Mm-hmm. So just be able to bring awareness to that. And like to that, and just have a safe space to talk about topics that we don't feel comfortable talking about with people of non-color. And just especially like right now, we had a meeting on Sunday and we were talking about emotional labor, because it's so hard sometimes for people to just, sometimes our allies or people of non-color come to us and like they're like, what do we do when like how can I, when it's hard to say, like there's Google, you can look it up. Yeah. But like that just that labor of having that stuff come on you, and just it's just a space to like talk about that. And then I think as a track team, we kind of came up with some ideas. We came up with the face masks, with promoting that. We're actually gonna start. we created like a fundraiser to connect it to the Los Angeles bail fund. So all the money with the face mask will go to that, but also it'll help bring awareness to how it's affecting the Black community more. That's and great. Like the systemic racism with that. And we had some other projects along with the podcast. I'll let Cam and Bree talk on those as well.
Some other projects we had were we had posts each, not every athlete on our team, but about 20 athletes. They did a book recommendation series or movie. Obviously they talked about their recommendations, but Bailey made graphics for everybody, and we are posting, I believe, every day a different athlete and what they recommend and how it has affected them and why they recommend it to people. And yeah, other than that, I believe we did one more thing other than the podcast.
Yeah, we also, the face mask, we did that, and we did a video on Juneteenth, and what it is. So me and a couple other athletes, male and female, we just answered some questions based on like what Juneteenth is, how do we learn about it, what it means to us, and like just giving a little extra background on it and what it is and how it's like and why it's celebrated essentially. So that was another thing we did. And then as far as the face mask, I believe Bailey was in charge of that as well. So they came up with the design. And then as a team, we collectively agreed on like which one we wanted to go with. And then they're choosing like which, where the funds go, like based off of like when they make the money off the face mask, where the funds will be donated to.
That's great. That's great. I will say, one, the white friends hitting us up about like what they can do. I'm like, Amanda Sills said it best. She goes, "Do you know how much shit I know about the Holocaust?" And it's not a slight to the Holocaust, obviously, but it's like we had to learn it. We had to. It was required reading and studying in school. Put yourself back in school. Like, don't come to us and tell us how can you be an ally. Some of you guys already are allies. Like, I've had friends that I've known for 20 years hit me up saying they're thinking about me and everything. And I'm like, motherfucker, like, I know you're like, you good. like to my white friend, like, you're not white people. When I say white people, you aren't white people. Like, to me, I feel like when Black people say white people in that like generic term, it's like the Chris Rock joke where he's like, I love my Black people, but I hate niggas. Essentially, like that is it's a stereotype. White people sometimes can just be a generalized stereotype. And some of my white friends, I'm like, you aren't who I'm talking about. Y'all are good. But I've had headaches about that. Just like telling my white friends, like, I can't do this with you right now. I absolutely can't. And even with Juneteenth, it's been so great. You know, I understood it. You know, I knew what it was years ago. But it's been great to see somewhat the nation bring this like iconic moment in our history from like the grips of history into the idea of being a national holiday. Like, I don't think we've really seen that before. Like, even maybe Martin Luther King's birthday, it's still not recognized in some states as like a national holiday, I believe, or I think in Arizona it might not be. But the idea of taking something that was ours and like shoving it down the country's throat as like, you guys aren't going to let us like, we're not going to let you guys forget that this happened, and now it's being considered potentially as a national holiday, is like a great, if anything is accomplished in 2020 outside of obviously the arrest of like Breonna Taylor and just justice overall, like I would consider 2020 a win if we got Juneteenth a national holiday, like mark as a national holiday. So I just had to say that.
Exactly.
I have a question. I want to know what advice you could give us as student athletes when you said like our white friends, sometimes we hear them say things that are either racist, like borderline racist or about to be racist. But since we're athletes, I feel like sometimes you don't feel like you can go off on them like that or combat the Karens with fighting and stuff because we can't put ourselves out there like that. So what would you say the best route would be for us to stand up for ourselves, but also keep it more like professional, but also let them know like, like that's not.
No, I think now's the time for us not to be gracious. Now's the time for us not to hold our tongue. We've been conditioned to hold our tongue in these cases. And it comes from the idea that again, white people think everything is entitled to them. And that even stems to the conversation of them not being able to say nigga in rap lyrics, is because they have been taught that everything belongs to them. And if you take something away, then that's something against their rights. So now's the time more than ever, especially with the climate that we're in. If somebody's talking foul like that, they're making a conscious decision to talk foul like that. It's not just for jokes, and it's not just I didn't mean it. It's like, if you respect me enough as your friend and your teammate, based off of what we just came out of, when you guys all get back together, you should know this isn't the shit to joke about. You should know how we feel. Like, you should know. And one thing I will say too, to those white friends that, you know, claim to be allies, and again, some of them are, is don't have these conversations with your black friend. Have these conversations with your white family, with your white friends. Like, I've had friends do that whole I'm thinking about you and this is so crazy. And, you know, I've had friends that voted for Trump, and I told them 4 years ago, I said, watch where this country is going to be in 3 or 4 years. And now fast forward to where we are now, and like, you know what, I'm not even going to vote this year because of XYZ. And I tell them straight up, like, listen, I don't want you not to vote. You have every right to vote. You can vote for Trump. You can vote for whoever. I'm not telling you who to vote for, but just know if you are voting for him a second time, you are complicit with where we are in the country, and you don't see me as an equal to you, because you can literally see what is happening to our country in the 4 years that he's been in office, how it's deteriorated. So don't have these conversations with your black friends. Have these conversations with your white family and your white friends, because that's where the change is going to happen. Like, I don't need to know that me and you are cool, because I already know that. Right. I need to know that you talk to your brother that maybe shares different views than you, that you talk to your family, that you talk to your friends in your rural neighborhoods, and maybe you're attempting to exact change where you come from. Because where I'm from, I'm good. I see where we can take this, but we need you guys to help us take it there.
Yeah, I very much so agree with that, because I know it takes a lot of courage to stand up to your family, especially if they have grown up with that belief of the whole racist belief and everything. And I've seen kids on like popular app TikTok literally get kicked out of their house because they believe Black Lives Matter. Like, just kicked out. Like, that's a strong step you have to take. But if you truly believe that, then yeah, it's more than just being silent or not voting.
Yeah, it's my firm belief that even the reason why Trump was elected is because this is that establishment's somewhat last attempt at the power grab before they realize that the generations beneath them are, you know, woke enough to understand that Black and white people, Mexican, Asian, whatever, like, we're done with this whole race shit. So I think even like Trump being elected was like, this is our last like Hail Mary shot, like buzzer beater, and we're not going down without a fight. So you've seen it. Like, I've seen some of those same videos of teenage girls going at their parents like Black lives do matter. And they're like, oh, all they want to do is just smoke and drink and fight and everything. And she's like, that's not true. Like, what are you talking about? So I definitely see the change in our country happening. We just have to get there. Like, a lot of people don't realize that, like, empires and I'm talking past empires and all, like, these people stood for, I mean, these ideas stood for hundreds of years. Like, we're like 50 years removed from the civil rights movement. Like, we're still very young in all this stuff. So to see the progress that in 50 years that specifically Black people have had, we're actually kind of killing it in just 50 short years. Like, even beyond that, but I'm just saying specifically from civil rights to now, like, we're actually outpacing white people when it comes to progress. But I'm just excited to see where the next 50, 100 years go when we have these younger generations, like, you know, waking up earlier than maybe we had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I really love that we've had this conversation. I think it's really important, super awesome to just have an open dialogue. And for us, like the 5 of us here, and also anyone who's listening, one thing we wanted to wrap it up with, as I know we've been talking about a lot of heavier topics, is just to do like almost some rapid fire, this or that, more fun questions. So I'll have Bailey kick it off with some of the ones that we have for you.
All right, let's go.
Okay, so we were trying to think of some fun ones. So the biggest one that we came up with was, French fries or tater tots?
French fries.
Why French fries?
It's just consistent. They're just consistent. Like tater tots are good in the moment, and like
because you could dip them, but then like a
French like you can have French fries. Like you can always just have French fries on deck, but like you're not really going to the grocery store and getting tater tots like every week.
Right.
Okay, vanilla or chocolate?
What?
Vanilla or chocolate? Basically, ice cream or in general.
Okay, only ice cream.
Ice cream. Okay.
Vanilla. I'm not a chocolate guy. I'm not a chocolate guy. I never been in terms of again only ice cream.
I know you grew up in LA, Southern California, but In-N-Out or Whataburger?
In-N-Out. Stop.
Obviously. Like there's no competition.
The fact that there has to be a debate about this, it's always like In-N-Out is up here and the other company is trying to like knock it off. I'm like, just get away.
And they be trying to get us off the fries, like, because they're not salty enough. Like, you can put the salt on there.
But also I'm like, yeah, because they're all natural. Like they're all the one thing I hate about like these whole fast food debates is people are like, even if you go down to like McDonald's, Burger King, it's like the food is genetically modified to taste good. It's not a matter of is it good or not. It's like, do you want it? Do you actually want it? Like In-N-Out is just fucking good. Like I'm actually a big supporter of the fries. Like I fuck with the fries, but you have to eat them a certain way. As soon as they get to the bag, you have to close the fucking bag. That is the mistake. People leave the bag open, and that's when all that heat gets out. Close that bag and let them shits cook.
Even Chick-fil-A too. They're not super
Chick-fil-A
salty.
too.
But if you close
Chick-fil-A
it
too. But here, okay, let's get into this. Chick-fil-A's fries are fucking garbage unless you get them extra crispy.
Yes.
And the reason why they're garbage is because they're crisp cut. You can legit. I think they scientifically like made the fry box to where fries will never fall out the side. Like you never get the loose fry at the bottom of the bag. I fucking hate that. I fucking hate that.
You're so right.
Like I hate knowing that like that last fry, I'm not going to be surprised in the bottom of the bag.
You're right. And you have the potato skin ones. Those are nasty.
Exactly. You can tell like I've thought about this before.
In the morning when we have the little tater tots, those are pretty good.
Those are good. Listen, morning tater tots and hash browns from like any fast food spot, those always hit. Like I don't eat McDonald's, but I will have McDonald's breakfast like 3 times a year. And here we are.
Their hash browns are good.
And like not tell my wife about it. Like I'll go and get it and then like throw the bag away somewhere not my home. So like if she's somewhere by the trash, she's like, what the, like I feel like I'm cheating on my wife when I do that. Like,
that's real sneaky.
I do that too, though. I don't have no shame in my game. I be throwing away the bag before I get in the house.
Yeah, it's like once you bring it into the house, it becomes real.
Yep.
So it's like, no, I'm gonna eat 2 breakfast sandwiches and 2 hash browns and a big orange juice and throw it outside because once I bring it in, that means it's like all the calories actually take into effect once it walks into my house.
Well, then you also get the questions. It's like, wait, where's my meal? It's like, I didn't go for you. I went for me.
Or then be like, but you don't like fast food. Like whenever you turn it on them, it's like, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
Exactly. They're like, last week you told me you didn't like McDonald's. Well, this week I do. So, it's funny.
All right. Well,
a dog or a cat?
I grew up with dogs. I'm a dog person. I had the same dog, rest in peace, Rocky, from first grade to senior year of high school. And I haven't had a dog since. My wife actually was attacked by a dog when she was a kid. So I don't think we're going to be getting a dog, but I'm absolutely a dog person.
Cam's a new turtle owner.
Turtle? What? Like what? Why? What's that? What's the low maintenance or?
Okay, so my mom keeps saying, because we had a dog back in the day, but it used to chew up my sister's like diapers and stuff, so she got rid of it. So now she won't let us get a dog, and I was like, if I can't have a dog, but I don't want to fish, I just get a turtle.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I don't. It made sense in my head, so I went bought one.
What's its name?
You know, I still ain't figured. I bought it like 2 hours ago, so I haven't figured that out yet. I'm gonna name in like 10 minutes when I think about it.
Sydney, you gotta keep me up to date. I want to know this turtle's name.
Your sister said his name is Wimpy.
I'll let you know. Yeah, his sister put out a name for us.
Your sister named it when he was gone.
Of course she did. All right. Anyway, but I had a question. So you played in the East Coast. So which coast is the best, East or West?
Ah, man, I would say the East Coast is best, but because I like, let's be real. When you say the West Coast, you just mean Los Angeles.
That's true.
Like that's just it. We're like East Coast. You have so many cities. Like I've had the luxury of playing in North Carolina, playing in Miami, playing in New York, like Philadelphia. Like there are so many dope cities. But if I have to pick somewhere to live, obviously I'm picking Los Angeles. Like who wouldn't want to live in Los Angeles? But yeah, that whole like East versus West, it's literally East versus Los Angeles, and that's it.
Yeah. Got a point there. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Southern California native. I can't give it East Coast, but I see your point.
Well, I will say, and I used to tell this to my friends all the time, is like if you're like early 20s and you're trying to figure out what to do, or you have some time to sort of explore, I tell everybody live in New York for 6 months to a year. Like I feel like every young adult should experience New York in that time of their life. It was absolutely like transformative for me, just seeing so many different cultures and ethnicities just like mesh together and not really be at odds with each other. Just the vibe of New York. I feel like New York is like its own battery. Like when I could be dog tired and step onto the island or step into Manhattan and just be completely energized. And that whole New York minute is absolutely real. Like you can go out for drinks with a friend at 9 p.m. and think like, oh, we're just having one drink, and then look at your clock and it's 4 a.m. And it's just, it's such a real thing because there's always something to do, something cool to do, something interesting that's insightful that can pour into you. Like if you guys ever have an opportunity to live in New York for a short amount of time, like absolutely do it.
I think that's one of my goals. I want to like settle in LA, somewhere closer to the beach area, but yeah, living in New York would just be super awesome.
I try to go back at least twice a year. I feel like I need to have New York in me at least twice a year.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we're going to wrap it up. With all of us from the USC track team, we want to send over a big thank you for being on our podcast. Thank you. Thank you. We really appreciate you spending the time to talk with us, having a conversation, hitting the heavy topics as well as, the rapid fire ones. But
by all means, thank you guys for having me. Like I said, when we initially talked, whenever I see athletes, especially college athletes, doing something outside of the sport or just like broadening their horizon, I'm always down to help. So, use me as a contact, use me as a resource. I'm down to help you guys in whatever I can. But also, when you guys kick back up your season, like shoot me your schedule. I'd love to come to a meet or two.
Definitely. We'll send that your way.
I can bring, see if I can bring some of the cast, Jordan or Spence with me.
We're going to hold you to that one.
Michael, who plays Jordan, he ran hurdles in high school as well. And I think he got like a track scholarship to like Indiana State or Indiana. I'll have to ask him back. I remember us talking about hurdles and us being both like, glad we're done with those.
All right. Well, we don't want to hold you up for your whole afternoon, your whole day. But again, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Pleasure talking to you guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, have a good day.
You too.
All right, everyone. Well, that concludes episode 3 of Off the Track podcast. Episodes are uploaded 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Fridays. So catch it on YouTube. Also, we have it on, I believe, iTunes, whatever podcast services that way. So yeah, awesome. Fight on, everyone.
Fight on.